When should I tell my employer I'm pregnant?
Obviously, it's a personal decision as to when you tell your employer and your colleagues that you're pregnant. The minimum time that you need to tell your employer is 15 weeks before you have your baby. But if you tell your employer before then you are entitled to time off for paid antenatal appointments. You are also entitled to a health and safety assessment to see if the work that you're doing is going to impact your pregnancy. And you will also be entitled to redundancy protection if your employer acts unfairly on your return from your maternity leave.
I'm worried about managing money while I'm on maternity leave.
If you're worrying about finances, my advice is firstly to get as much information as you can from your employer about maternity rights and benefits. There's also lots of useful information online at gov.uk website and through organisations such as ACAS, Working Families and the Family and Childcare Trust.
Maternity pay benefits and entitlement will entirely depend upon how you're employed. So are you an employee or an agency worker or self-employed or not working? All of those things have a big impact. In the UK, you can get either statutory maternity pay or maternity allowance. If you have statutory maternity pay, then that will come to you via your employer. And of course, some employers have additional enhanced maternity pay. The best way to find out what you're entitled to is to firstly go to the government website, because they have a maternity calculator that lets you know exactly what you can get.
Handing over my job to maternity cover.
One of the things your employer might want to do while you're on maternity leave is to employ a maternity cover to do your job for you while you're away.
Some mums-to-be feel worried about handing over their role and going on maternity leave, and perhaps you feel worried that the person covering your maternity leave will be better than you, or they might be offered your job, or you might find it hard to let go, worrying about the need to put things back as they were when you return to work. It's normal to have these concerns, especially if this is your first baby and your first break from work. Some mums find that once baby's here, their worries around work lessen as they focus on their new role as a mum, and you always have the option to keep in contact with your employer about work if that's helpful for you.
Will my job change while I'm away?
You're entitled to 52 weeks of maternity leave, and this is split into 2 lots of 26 weeks. After your first 26 weeks, you're entitled to get your old job back. After your second 26 weeks, then your employer should give you your job back unless they say it's not reasonably practical. But if they say that, then they must give you a suitable alternative.
I'm worried I'll get left behind while I'm off.
Worries about losing skills and confidence and getting left behind at work are completely normal, regardless of your role or your pay grade. It can be really useful to think about what you're gaining rather than what you might be losing. And when you become a parent, you will develop a whole new set of skills that will be really useful at work as well as at home, such as multitasking, planning, prioritising, adapting to change and dealing with unexpected challenges.
Whilst you're away on maternity leave, your employer may make reasonable contact with you. And there's no real definition of what reasonable is, but a lot of it will depend on the methods that you choose to leave open for your employer to contact you. While you're on maternity leave, your employer must tell you about any promotional opportunities or training opportunities that there are for you. One of the things that you may want to think about is agreeing with your employer to have kit days or keeping in touch days. And these days then will allow you to know what's happening within your workplace and what changes there might be with your job. There are some rules about keeping in touch days, and you might want to find out a bit more about them. But the most important thing to remember is that you can have 10 days before this affects your maternity leave or your pay. One of the things parents who contact our helpline tell us is that they wish they'd known some things before they had their baby. So have a look at our website, because there's lots of information about what your options are. There are other websites you can go to for information, and there are also films and articles in Baby Buddy.
If you're feeling overwhelmed or unable to cope, speak to your GP or contact a confidential advice service, such as those listed on screen.